Alrighty, guys, we are trucking along here. We are at the very, very early hours. You are doing great work. Thank you, Daniel. A win. Sorry. It's so late. I'm very delirious right now. All right, so we are moving on now to one of the segments that I'm very, very excited for to talk about, which is my way too early Oscar predictions. Now, the good thing about this is that I was going into this like I'm going to prepare graphics and research, and I was like, you know what? I think more fun of it would be watching me delirious at 6 a.m. trying to piece together a bunch of Oscar predictions for a year from now. I just think there's something funny to that because at this time last year, I think we were way off with a lot of things. You holding up so far? I am holding up so far. I'm trying my best. Trying my best. I'm actually drinking a lot of water. I was thinking caffeine would be the move, but the thing is, I want to be able to sleep after this. If I drink too much caffeine, I'll just be up, 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 up. And I also have to work later today. That's another spoiler. A big spoiler to my life, I guess. Yeah, I'm delirious, but we are here. We're moving on to some Oscar predictions because everyone loves to hear my early Oscar predictions. I believe last year, Oppenheimer, I was not necessarily with the train. I loved the movie when I saw it, but at this time last year, before Oppenheimer had come out, I didn't think it would be as big of an awards darling as it ended up being. I didn't have Barbie on the radar very much at all as like an awards darling. And I think that's kind of the fun of Oscar season is watching as the season trickles on. Like American Fiction, for example, was a big one that right out of TIFF, it was like, whoa, wait, this is a film we got to keep notice of. This is going to be one of those films we should pay attention to. And then it ends up getting a Best Picture nomination and a bunch of other nominations. So I think this is going to be fun. Yeah, doing this before work, I know I am a crazy bastard. I don't have to work till like 3:30 or whatever. But let's get into it. Before we do, I just want to also say, yay, we hit where we've gotten 316 new subs since yesterday at noon, which is very big, very exciting. And 500 subs will unlock the director ranking for Billy Wilder. So we did hit that 250. We did hit that 250. So the Taylor Swift concert will be happening. We're now just waiting to get to 500 is the next benchmark for a Billy Wilder ranking. So I'm doing this very informally. I have literally a doc here. We're going to kind of fill in what I believe are the top contenders right now, at least for nominations. As for picking a winner, it's very hard right now. I think there's like kind of a consensus out there right now as to what like the number one most likely winner would be right now, but it's so early that I don't think you can say anything is certain. But I do think it's very likely we will see Sing Sing at least pick up a nomination. Will it win? I don't know if Sing Sing will win. But I do think Sing Sing is one that is already getting very early hype from some festival premieres last year. It focuses around, I believe, an acting troupe. I'm going to read the synopsis here. A small group of prisoners inside Sing Sing Correctional Facility, one of the world's most infamous maximum security prisons, attempts to stage their own original production, breaking the Mummy's Code. So it's supposed to be it's kind of a drama, even though it has a more fantastical, kind of funny premise. It is supposed to be a drama. I don't know too much about it, but it's like about these inmates coming together, putting on a show. I think it's going to really speak to artists out there, which is another big one. I mean, Hollywood loves awarding movies about art. It's led by Coleman Domingo, who is at a all-time high right now with his whole career resurgence, or surgeons, I guess, not resurgence, surgeons, which is really exciting. So yeah, I think Sing Sing is just going to be the film that is going to be like the crowd pleaser of the year that people get behind. But right behind it, I'm going to put Blitz. I think it's very safe to say that a Steve McQueen I believe it's World War II or World War One, film, directed by a guy who won Best Picture for 12 Years a Slave. He actually didn't win Best Director that year for Gravity, which is also why I think he could be an early frontrunner for Best Director. But he's making a war film. War films usually get awarded a nomination, especially if they're good and especially if they have people that the Oscars clearly like Oscar darlings attached to them. So I think Blitz definitely has a good shot. It's got Saoirse Ronan is in the cast, which I think could also help her get to maybe a nomination. Hopefully, I would love to see it. So yeah, I think Blitz is going to be one that's going to be like a heavy contender as we see this Oscar season go on. I think you're going to hear a lot about Blitz. This is just very difficult, but I think we're going to have to put Dune Part 2 on there. I'm about to do my review in just a bit. Oops, that should be caps locked. Dune Part 2. The thing with Dune Part 2 is that like Dune Part 1 got nominated, but that doesn't really matter for the Oscars. But we have seen a trend where if a Best Picture nominee has a good sequel, like Avatar, for example, or like The Lord of the Rings, like typically they like to continue awarding them if they like them. Which also brings me to Joker Folie Deux. I don't think this is going to be the best movie of the year. I'm not very excited for it necessarily, but there's something to be said about the fact that I think the Academy might eat it up. And I think when we look at some of these like higher profile films of the award season, I definitely think this is one of them. I think this is definitely one that I think a lot of people are going to be buzzing about, are going to be talking about, are going to be excited about. I personally am not very excited about it, as I just said, but sorry, I got to reconnect my charger here. But I do think there's a chance that this ends up just being a really strong contender, especially in techs, because it does look like a technical step up. It does look like it's going to be a makeup contender and have some costume contenders. So I'm going to put Joker there for safety, but I would not be surprised if I'm wrong. Next, movie that I don't know much about, but Conclave. It's directed by the same guy who did All Quiet on the Western Front remake, Edward Berger. But it is supposed to be very, very good. It's about Ray Fiennes plays this, I believe he's a pope or a monk, or a pope. Finding the successor to the deceased pope, discovers the former pope had a secret that must be uncovered. So it's kind of got this like thriller vibe to it. If it's a lot just straight up thriller, usually they don't go for just straight thrillers like The Killer, for example, last year, David Fincher. So there's also that risk of like maybe it's going to be just too thrillery and not actually be like what the Oscars normally award. But I do think there's a good chance for Conclave to pick up some nominations there. The next film, I'm just looking at the list of what's coming out and trying to gauge it. I think I'm going to go with The End. This is one that really intrigued me hearing about it. This is directed by Joshua Oppenheimer, which I think would be kind of cool. But this stars Tilda Swinton and George McKay. It's about a wealthy family that lives in an underground bunker 2 decades after the end of the world, which they contributed to. It's an apocalyptic musical film, which I think can be like pretty alienating. It doesn't necessarily sound like a Best Picture nominee on paper. But early buzz and early test screenings have been actually really, really solid. And I also think it's got that like international vibe going for it, even though it's not international. It's produced by a bunch of other countries like Denmark, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Sweden. It is Neon distributed. I think Neon's been doing good about getting their films in. Anatomy of a Fall being one from last year, Triangle of Sadness the year before. I could see The End being that kind of slot for them this year, because I could see this being the one that gets them in there. I really don't have much else to say about The End. I really don't know what else to gauge there for The End, but I am excited for it. I am excited by these movies that I hear are buzzy and good without necessarily knowing all the details of it. Then this is where it gets tough. It's been getting tough, but there's a movie that's coming out that I can't imagine being an awards film, but it really seems to be on a lot of people's predictions, and that is The Apprentice, which is the story of a young Donald Trump, but it's not played in a comedic sense. It's actually a drama, which is going to be super intriguing. It's going to be the most polarizing film of the year, I think, but Vice did get nominated here a few years ago, and I do think people like the idea of these actors taking on these political issues. It seems like it's going to take itself much more seriously even than Vice. Sebastian Stan is playing Donald Trump, which I think is also a very interesting casting choice, just an interesting development in general. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I really don't know how that's going to go, whether or not that's going to be a true awards darling or not. But I think because it's also getting a Cannes premiere means they have some faith in it. And I don't think they would just like put it in the Cannes Film Festival if it was kind of a joke film or not meant to be taken seriously. Also, just if you look at the rest of the cast, I mean, Jeremy Strong is in it, Maria Bakalova, like these other people that have been getting awards in other places, whether it be Emmys or for Borat for Maria Bakalova. So clearly there is some prestige here behind The Apprentice. And I do think if it is a really good movie, it could be one of those like documented, really strong biopics about a president that is flawed, probably. Hopefully it shows the flaws, but I do think it would be really cool if this ended up being really good and ended up being something that like we could learn from and that we could like really enjoy with time and become one of the great biopics, presidential biopics. Next up, okay. I've been looking at the Nickel Boys. I'm gonna put the Nickel Boys here because the Nickel Boys. Every time I read about the premise, it sounds really interesting. This is a famous book or a breakout book in 2019 by Colson Whitehead. It takes place for this African American school, I believe, where there were these secretly buried bodies on the premises of this school or this academy in New York City. I don't really know much about it, but it does also have that thriller vibe to it, the Nickel Boys. But I do think because the book was very well received, I do think the Nickel Boys could be a really interesting historical drama that comes out that I think a lot of people will enjoy. Anjanou Ellis Ross is the lead of it, and I know she's been getting already some early hype. This is going to be Amazon's big push, so I'm going to put this here at number 8. At number 9, this is a film that could end up being a big flop when it comes to it, but if it is great, I'm going to put Megalopolis because I don't want to be on the wrong side of history if Megalopolis is great. If Megalopolis is great, I want to be the one who said, yeah, it was always going to be great. I saw that teaser trailer yesterday. I can't believe it was already yesterday. Jeez. Right before the stream started. And I just feel like Megalopolis has the potential to be something really, really spectacular. I think there's also something about Francis Ford Coppola's, story. The fact that he did this, as a project for his wife, for his lovely wife who passed away. And this is kind of like in her memory. He released a teaser. I think there's going to be a lot of reasons why people do end up really, really liking this film and running to root for this film. Also because it's struggling to get some distribution. I think it's going to be one of those like little movies that when it does come out, and if people do love it, I think they are going to have no choice but to praise it as one of the best of the year. And then another one, it's from a director that hasn't really had a Best Picture nominee in quite a while, but is a premise that sounds good. It's a courtroom drama, from what I gather, by Clint Eastwood. It's Juror Number 2, and the whole thing is like, if Juror Number 2 is really solid, this is like a veteran director, Clint Eastwood, doing like a late work in his career, obviously, and hitting it out of the park. I think it could garner enough love for the Academy. I think they would really like to see it. It's about family man Justin Kemp, who, while serving as a juror in a high-profile murder trial, finds himself struggling with a moral dilemma. Again, these premises, these plot synopses are very vague, but I also think that's what is going to make this very exciting to see unfold over the few months until the Oscars, is to see more and more trailers and more footage. But just based on that premise alone, I think Juror Number 2 could be a really cool kind of comeback for Clint Eastwood in the Oscar game, which is unique considering Clint Eastwood, I feel like, has already made his comeback a few times. So I don't know. Moving on next, there's always a Sundance, and these are going to be like my number, like my next tier, if you will. So that's like my predicted 10. But like, if I have to keep going, obviously Furiosa, if it's amazing, if it's as good as Mad Max Fury Road, like, I definitely don't want to count it out. My only thing is like, is that, because it's not just the sequel to Fury Road, it's a fifth in a franchise. And I just feel like Mad Max Fury Road was its own beautiful little unicorn of a film. No one had seen anything like it in a while at the time. And I think it was just this really great kind of anomaly at the time that I don't necessarily know of now, if it's necessarily going to be as loved. Even if it's great, I don't know if it's going to be an Academy thing. I'm also putting here, which is very interesting because Robert Zemeckis has been having some really tough luck over the past like 2 decades in terms of getting his movies in and well received and well acclaimed for Oscars. But here looks really interesting. I believe it takes place in like the same room over a span of a bunch of years, from what I remember reading. Robin Wright and Tom Hanks reunite for the first time since Forrest Gump, which is going to be like kind of a cool story. So I definitely could see a world where here ends up being kind of a return for Robert Zemeckis in the Oscar race as well. And I think if it is like this crowd pleaser, I think we could see it being one of those surprising nominees that ends up being like a consistent nominee across the board, for SAG, for BAFTA, for Critics' Choice, just being this awards juggernaut. Next up, Luca Guadagnino is having a year, and I'm going to put Challengers and Queer back to back, just because I feel like one of his films is going to become the awards darling. Now, if Challengers is able to hold over, Get it? Because the holdovers last year. That's fun. But if Challengers is able to hold over and continue this real wave of like hype and popularity in a similar way that like Barbie, Oppenheimer, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Black Panther did, the only thing is that I still think it's a small enough movie. I don't see that necessarily happening for Challengers. As much as I want it to happen, and as much as I would love for it to happen with Challengers, I just personally don't know if Challengers is that type of film that is going to be able to hold through the rest of the year, which is why I also put Queer here, because I think Queer is the other Luca Guadagnino film this year. It's coming out later in the year, and this is also one that I think could get a lot of attention for its acting for Daniel Craig. So I think this could be the more safe bet for Luca Guadagnino, but the truth is he has two great movies, supposedly. I haven't seen Queer yet, obviously, but I think this is a potential for him to get in multiple different ways. If it doesn't work with one film, he has another to lean on, which I think is a really cool prospect to see. I think it's pretty amazing that he has all this like leeway to like campaign multiple different films. So I'm very curious to see how this goes for him, because I think this could be a real breakout year for him. And if he does end up getting one or both the films into a lot of major categories, he could be a director contender as well. All right, next, I'm putting Didi. There's always a Sundance film that always ends up being in the conversation. A lot of the times it ends up being a nominee, like Coda, which ended up winning, but also, of course, Past Lives. But I just don't necessarily know if anything that came out of Sundance is going to be big enough to like really break through the mold and end up on the list. But I will put A Real Pain there as well, because I think of all the films that come out of Sundance, I think DD is and A Real Pain are the ones that I think I could see having the best chance of getting in for an Oscar nomination and for that. So that is that, DD and A Real Pain. Next, moving on, I'm going to put The Piano Lesson. This is a film that I've been really excited for. This is kind of part of Denzel Washington's ongoing project of adapting August Wilson novels. He, of course, adapted Fences and directed that himself and starred in that himself. He produced Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which obviously starred the final leading performance of Chadwick Boseman posthumously. And this is his third big one. This is one that I think is going to be a number one contender in another category, which we'll get to. So I'm really excited for The Piano Lesson, and I hope it's as good as the other two. Now, Ma Rainey didn't get nominated, which means I don't know if I'm looking at The Piano Lesson as a Best Picture nominee, but I am looking at it as a contender for lots of other categories, specifically acting. There's a film that I don't know much about, but it has the longest title, The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat. I've heard buzz about this film. I really didn't look up much into what this film is, but it is on a lot of people's lists, so I wanted to like bring it up because I do think there's a chance that this could be an Oscar player. But the title's just so long. I honestly think the biggest reason for holding back me putting it in the top 10 is simply because I don't really know if I personally want to write it out every time it gets nominated for something. So for my own sake, I'm putting it lower. I think that's just a selfish reason, but who knows? Kind of going along the sequel train, we really have no idea how Gladiator 2 is going to be. This could be like a huge like Top Gun Maverick type deal where it's like this long-awaited legacy sequel. I don't even think it's long-awaited. I don't think anyone ever thought we'd get a sequel to Gladiator, but this big sequel all these years later to a film that's beloved, it kind of shocks us all, ends up being amazing. If it is amazing, I mean, it's one of those things where these sequels like Furiosa and Gladiator and even, Joker, it's like, if these are amazing films, why not nominate them? Like, I know they're sequels, but just a few years ago, the Critics' Choice nominated Glass Onion, Black Panther, and Top Gun and Avatar. It was like 4 sequels, and that's the thing, is like, if they're all good, they're all good. And I could see a world where Gladiator 2 is just really good, and that's why people just want to award it. Number 20, a film that I probably would have put in my top 10. It was originally called Flint Strong. Now it's called The Fire Inside, which is about a boxer, a black female boxer. It's written by Barry Jenkins. Brian Tyree Henry's in it. This is a film that I put in my top 10 when I was devising this list, but no one else seems to be predicting it, and it's coming out in like August. So I am a little worried that maybe it's just not going to be seen by enough people to be a contender there. But I'm going to give a few more. I think there is a possibility, again, if it's great, we could see Hitman be Netflix's big push. I don't necessarily think it will happen just because Richard Linklater hasn't really been too much of an Oscar guy. I feel like a lot of his stuff is more, indie crowd, art house stuff. He obviously obviously broken the scene with Boyhood, but none of his other films I feel like have been like super huge Oscar-y movies. I am going to put Kinds of Kindness here. I know this is lower than a lot of people have it. I did not spell that right. Kindness. This is Richard, or sorry, not Richard Linklater. That was above. This is Yorgos Lanthimos' new film. He's reteaming with Emma Stone. It's an anthology film, and that's kind of where I go, ooh, it's an anthology. I just don't see the Oscars awarding an anthology film a Best Picture nomination. I just don't think it's their cup of tea. I think they like a full narrative, a full arc. I mean, look at The French Dispatch just a few years ago. Quite literally got dispatched from the Oscars and got 0 nominations. I just think that's one of those films that, as good as it may be, as good as it might be, I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen, sadly. Next, I'm going to put Maria. This is one that I believe stars Angelina Jolie. This is a Pablo Larraín film, I believe, about a woman. What is her deal? Let me just look it up. A biographical drama about Maria Callas's final years in the 1970s when she was living in Paris. She is an opera singer, so it's about an opera singer. Angelina Jolie's clearly going to be doing a very transformative performance, and I do think there's a chance she gets nominated. So the fact that she is going to be a front runner in a lot of categories has me thinking that Maria is going to be at least in the conversation, kind of like how Jackie was and Spencer was. Like they were always in the conversation, even though they were never going to happen because their lead actresses were. So 24, if it's a big summer hit, I did put The Bike Riders. This got delayed a year. I do think that delay could actually help it out a lot. I think there's a good chance we could see it surprise and end up getting in some places. I would really like it to happen. And then at 25, I always end up putting an animated film just because I always have faith that an animated film will eventually sneak in soon again someday. But this one is not necessarily going to go where you think it's going to go. I'm picking The Wild Robot from DreamWorks because of all the animated films coming out this year, I don't think Inside Out 2 is going to be the one that everyone's like most excited to see. I think The Wild Robot, based on its marketing, its trailers, its hype, its word of mouth, it's supposed to be this big anniversary project for DreamWorks. It feels like they're so confident in it being like their next big hit. Just the way they're marketing it makes it feel that way. And a lot of people are saying this could be their next like big How to Train Your Dragon-esque franchise for DreamWorks, which hasn't had a big breakout like this since then. I mean, the closest thing was The Bad Guys, and that was not anything too special, really. So that is like my best picture, what I'm looking at right now as a potential for best picture this early right now. But again, it's so early. I really don't know what to think here in terms of who's a contender. And a lot of my best director contenders are going to kind of be like borrowed from that. I am going to put Steve McQueen at 1, though. I think him not winning for 12 Years a Slave means he has a very good shot at winning here for Blitz, especially if the war film is great. Obviously, the Academy loves him. It's just they gave it to Gravity that year. I think Blitz, though, is enough of a flashy technical film that I think it's going to get more direction acclaim than 12 Years a Slave will, which I think he should have won for 12 Years a Slave, personally speaking. But I think the Academy is more likely to award him for something like Blitz than that. Pardon me. I need to take these water swigs or I'm going to fall asleep. I'm going to bet on Denis. I know there's a very likely possibility he gets snubbed again and they just wait to give it to him for Dune Messiah. But I really do think a lot of people, if they were upset about him not getting nominated last time, I think they're not going to let that happen again. I really think there's a chance that he's going to come back with full force and really come back swinging and get that nomination. Is he going to win? I really don't think so. I just don't think Dune Part 2 is going to be your winner this year. And that's not because I don't like the movie. I like the movie. You'll hear my review very soon. It's just I don't think Dune Part 2 is the best picture of the year. I just don't think it's going to have that hold in the similar way that like Lord of the Rings did when that third movie came out, where it was undeniable. It also came out late in the year, whereas Dune came out early in the year. And not that an early release date is going to hurt it. I still think it's going to get nominated a bunch of places, but it's not like Barbie and Oppenheimer where everyone all year's like on, Dune fever. People were on Dune fever when it first came out, but like you don't see Dune everywhere you go in every conversation you have around the around these parts nowadays. If anything, people are now talking about challengers, and that's just what happens. The biggest movie kind of then becomes the biggest topic of conversation, and in just a few weeks, it'll probably be something else, like Furiosa or Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes or whatever. Is that the movie? Yeah, I think that's the title. So I worry that Dune is not going to necessarily have the staying power to win, but I think it will get nominated, and I think this is finally going to get Denis his director nomination, because I believe he got one for Arrival, but I have to fact check that. I'm not 100% sure. Again, it's late. But at number 3, I'm going to put the director for Sing Sing. His name's Greg Quidar. Again, if this film is going to be as big of a contender as I think it is, then I want to be on the right side of that. And then kind of continuing along, I'm just going to kind of go for the ones that I think are going to be big on the best picture likelihood, which is Edward Berger for Conclave. Now, the thing is, Edward Berger didn't get nominated for All Quiet on the Western Front. It was actually the international spot that year, I believe, went to Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness, or maybe they both got in. But either way, Edward Berger, I think he's someone that, like, if he continues to make these films that really appeal to people, that people really, really love, and keep like reappraising, then I think there's a chance he ends up being someone we see a lot in the Oscars in the upcoming years. And then just because there's always like usually one vet, I'm gonna just say, if it is a great movie, I'm gonna put Francis Ford Coppola here for Megalopolis. I know how do you spell it? There we go. I really don't think it's likely that he gets nominated, but if this movie's great, I want to be on the right side of history, and I want to say that I was there when I predicted Francis Ford Coppola for Megalopolis. And then we're gonna kind of just go for other best picture contenders, like Joshua Oppenheimer for The End, and of course Ali Abbasi for The Apprentice. The thing with those guys is, like, they're not big enough names to where, like, the movies have to be quite literal absolute hits for, like, Sing Sing, for example, for Greg Quidar to get in. But, like, for these guys to get in, there are going to have to be, like, the best movies of the year that are undeniable, that everyone's like, no, we have to give them this award to get in. And I just don't know if that's going to happen for these films. I think they're films that will just get in just without their directors. And then he's having a big year, so I'm going to put Luca Guadagnino. I almost want to put him for challengers / queer, but really, if I have to think about which one is going to get a slightly bigger Oscar push, I'm going to guess it's probably queer. But I really don't know with Luca. I would just like to see Luca get in this year, because I think he's going to have a big year. But as to what film it's going to be, I couldn't tell you. And then, just because I have to do it, as much as it pains me, I got to put Joker. Just because there is a very likely chance, if people love it, that Todd Phillips will get in again, which would be kind of nuts, because we don't really see a lot of sequel directors get in. So I'd be quite shocked. And I already have Denis getting in for a sequel. But yeah, one can hope that doesn't happen. But I know I'm being tough, but I really just I don't see that world where that happens. I'm sorry, I just don't. But who knows? Maybe it'll happen. And then you know what? I want to put a woman on this list, just because I think it's time we get another female director in for director this year. I am actually looking through the female directors this year, trying to see who it might be. And you know what? I just think, because I've heard this title the most, I'm going to put Tina Mabry for The Supremes. Again, I hate typing it all out. I'm going to copy and paste it here. The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat. Just because I do think it'd be cool to see a woman nominated this year again. So that seems to be the highest profile film right now in the Best Picture contention right now. Other films I could consider is the director of Night Bitch, the director of Bird, which I heard is probably going to be really good. And then I'm just looking to see if there's any other ones I missed. No, I think that's it. Right now, I think it's very early to call for director and picture. I mean, it's really early to call for all these. So this is just kind of like my first guess as to what might happen in some of these major categories. But let's move on now to Best Actress here. I'm going to try to scroll down. I'm going to start a new page here. So Best Actress. And this one, it's hard to say who the number one is right now, but I'm going to put Angelina Angelina Jolie. I just think if you look at Pablo Larraín's track record, he has a really good knack for getting his actresses nominated for like Natalie Portman and Jackie, and then Kristen Stewart and Spencer. Like I think his films are all about the acting, and that's why I'm not necessarily predicting it for a Best Picture nomination, Maria. But I do think it's still going to be in the conversation because of Angelina Jolie's performance. Another one I think you have to just predict her at this point, which is Lady Gaga for Joker Folie à Deux. Again, it's one of those things where if she's great, which she probably will be, and the film is well received, I think she could just come along for the ride. Now, I think this is going to be where I don't think Joaquin Phoenix gets in, because I really don't think they're going to award him twice or nominate him twice, because I don't think they're going to feel the need to. But I think this is the way to kind of nominate her and him in a way, if that makes sense. Like, it's like we love the performance of Joker so much that we gave Joaquin Phoenix the Oscar. Okay, we're gonna now do it for Lady Gaga the next time. So I think that's gonna be their way of kind of like bouncing back without having to give him another nomination and spread the wealth there. Also because I think she's so overdue and she's in a Best Picture frontrunner right now. I'm gonna put Saoirse Ronan for Blitz. She's also in a film called The Outrun, so I will probably put her on the list lower in like the 10 spot for that, just in case she gets in for that instead of this one. But I just I would love to see Saoirse Ronan here get in for that film, just because I think she's so overdue. She needs to finally win her award here, and I hope this is where it comes for her. Next up, let me put Tilda Swinton for The End. This is going to be very interesting to see if The End really is as big of an Oscar hopeful as I have been hearing it is, and thinking it is. If it is ending up being this big Oscar movie, there's no way she wouldn't come along the ride with it. She is the lead of it, and she is someone who I think the Academy really likes. She's someone that everyone really likes, and I think everyone's going to get on board with and want to award when they see this movie. And then the next one, this is kind of like a big, bold pick that I don't think a lot of people are going to be picking, but I want to kind of be on the right side of history here, and that's Ryan Destiny for The Fire Inside. I mentioned it. This is the film about the female boxer in Flint, Michigan. It used to be titled Flint Strong. This is a film that as soon as I heard about it, I was like, okay, so the actress is going to get nominated. Brian Tyree Henry is going to get nominated. The writing is going to get nominated. Maybe I should have put it in my Best Picture 10, because the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm convinced that I think it really could be something special. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I'm feeling testy today. I know it's coming on the summer, but I just threw off all my numbers. You know what? I'm going to put it at the number 10 slot, just because I think there's just something about that film that I have faith in right now, that I'm excited to see if that comes to fruition. So I know I just threw off all my graphics right here. I really royally F that up. Hold on. There we go. That's the best way to do that, right? Nope. I had it right the first time. Guys, I'm not very tech savvy. Hold on. Wait. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. And there's still an 11 there. I don't know why. That's fine. You know what I mean. That gets my point across, right? You guys can see that. That's my order right now. Yeah, I'm putting The Fire Inside up here, though. I'm putting The Fire Inside up here because I really do think there's a good chance The Fire Inside does speak well to people and speak well to voters. And because I'm going to predict in other categories, I want to be as I said, on the right side of history there, if it comes out to happen, to come out to fruition. Another one, again, I keep putting this film in here just because I think the title is so long and absurd that maybe it's just going to be like one of those favorites. It's been getting some good buzz right now. The Supremes All You Can Eat. Uzo Aduba is supposedly the lead of it, and she's a big like Emmy darling, and she's always getting nominated for SAG Awards and stuff. I'm also going to put Robin Wright for Here. I think there's something really cool about her, like kind of having this moment of return and like this being like her big comeback, and working with the same director as Forrest Gump, which kind of really surged her career in a big way. So I would love to see Robin Wright get nominated. I think that'd be really cool. I'm going to put Zendaya for Challengers. I think, again, like, I don't know how well this movie's going to hold over the year. I really think this could be something that film Twitter is just so hype about, but we're kind of looking a little too hard into it being an Oscar contender. And that's someone who's saying it's his favorite movie of the year. It is my favorite movie of the year, undeniably. But there's also no denying that it is probably not going to necessarily be as much the Academy's cup of tea as it is like the public's cup of tea. So I just want to be a little realistic and manage my expectations there. But next, let's see. Who do I want to put next? I'm just looking through some of these performances, seeing who I think could get in here. You know what? Okay, you know what? As much as I say I don't think it's going to be a Best Picture contender, you have to look at the last winner. And I'm just looking at Kinds of Kindness as a film that is not necessarily going to be a big Oscar contender. But listen, if it is ending up going to be a weak year because of the post-strike stuff, if this ends up being a little bit of a weaker year and like Emma Stone's great in Kinds of Kindness, I don't know how much of the movie she's in really, but if she is in a lot of the movie, she's really good in the movie, and it's Yorgos Lanthimos and Emma again. Like I could see a world where she goes back-to-back nominations. I'm not sure. But I did say I would save the last spot for Saoirse Ronan in The Outrun, just because, again, I think she's getting nominated. It's just a matter of which movie she's getting nominated for at this point. So actress is a little tough. I think it's very top heavy. Like I'm very, very confident that Jolie, Gaga, and Ronan will get in. The rest I'm not really sure about. Also, just because I think we just need to know a little bit more about these films to really be able to predict them. Whereas actor, I think is a little easier actually. I think Coleman Domingo right now is the heavy favorite for Sing Sing. I think because the movie is already a favorite in Best Picture and he's supposed to be really good in it, and he is someone who is just on a high. Like I said, his career is really surging at the right moment. He was almost a double nominee last year. If it wasn't so stacked, he could have been a double nominee for both Rustin and The Color Purple. He was nominated a lot of places for The Color Purple for the ensemble. He was nominated a bunch of places for Rustin, got a nomination for Rustin. I think Coleman Domingo is hitting a great moment of his career that I really am loving to see right now. And then next, I'm going to put Ralph Fiennes for Conclave. Again, I have it predicted for Best Picture, for Best Director. And again, if a film gets like Best Picture and Best Director and it has a star like Ralph Fiennes at the center of it, I don't know how he couldn't come along for the ride. Also, because he really doesn't have as many Oscar nominations as I think people think he does. He didn't win for any. He hasn't won before. So that could also be a reason for him to win this award. Like I could very well see at the end of this, when all is said and done, we are looking at Ralph Fiennes Academy Award winner, which would be really, really cool. Then I'm going to put Daniel Craig, which I know is a little iffy just because I'm not predicting queer in Best Picture. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think it needs to be a Best Picture nominee for him to get in. I think he's going to be playing a role that is very emotional, very dramatic, and I think it's going to be really effective to people who watch it and people who are enjoying it. And as we saw with Challengers, he knows how to get the great performances out of his actors. So I would not be surprised there. And then, again, I think this is one that, again, if the movie is taken seriously enough, I think Sebastian Stan playing Donald Trump, if he's really good, I think he could get in. And I think it's going to be one of those interesting nominations. I really don't know what that film is going to be. I really don't know if people are going to embrace it or not, or if they don't embrace it, are they still going to award the artistic merit of it? I truly do not know. I think it's very up in the air. I really don't know. And another slot, this is where it gets a little trickier because I really don't necessarily know who is the definitive number 5 here. I think it could go many which ways. But I'm going to go with someone who I think, if this film does get a Best Picture nomination, I think because they're the titular character, I think he could come along for the ride, and that is Nicholas Hoult for Juror number 2. I think, obviously Clint Eastwood has directed some Oscar-winning performances, and I do think there could be an interesting journey here where Nicholas Hoult gets his first nomination for this one. He's a respected enough actor who's not too seasoned in his career, but is still well respected enough where I think he is now at this point a respected name that could be overdue at a point for an Oscar nomination. So I'd like to see that. I'm gonna have to put Joaquin at number 6, but I really just don't think it's happening. I don't think the Academy is gonna go for a superhero performance twice. Like Angela Bassett got one for the sequel, not for the original. And then I'm trying to think of other examples. I guess there aren't many comic book examples. I mean, obviously Heath Ledger's a rare case because he wasn't able to be in any more Dark Knight movies, but it just doesn't feel, I just don't see them doing that. I don't see them giving him that performance back to back, playing Joker twice. I don't know, because there's that stat where like only a few roles have ever been nominated twice, and it's Joker for Joaquin and Heath Ledger, and then it's Vito Corleone for Marlon Brando and Robert De Niro, and they all won. And then the only person to be nominated, I believe, twice for playing the same role, I think, is Cate Blanchett for Elizabeth, and is Joker. And this take of the Joker that I don't even think is the best Joker performance ever, that is Heath Ledger's, is a Joker performance really going to be next to Kate Blanchett as the only other performance to get nominated for 2 films with the same character. I don't know. It could very well be, but I don't know. I have a deep suspicion that it's not going to be the case, but maybe I'm going to be wrong when all is said and done. I am putting John David Washington here at number 7. I think every time a John David Washington movie comes out, he's always overlooked. I feel like in Black Klansman, he was never really talked about as a potential to get an Oscar nominee. I think for Malcolm and Marie, everyone was talking about Zendaya potentially getting a nominee. I think he's always someone who is never really in the conversation, even if his films are. But here, we've seen with Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and of course with what are the fences that they get a lot of acting nominations, so I think there could be a world where he does get in a bunch, and then some that are like kind of just one-offs where I haven't really been predicting their movies anywhere else. But Andre Holland in The Actor, this has been a performance that's been getting buzz for a few years. It's been on my radar. I believe it's about an actor who gets like amnesia or gets hit in the head and forgets something. I don't know all the plots of these movies very deeply yet, but Andre Holland is so overdue. He's also in a great movie, Exhibiting Forgiveness, that came out in Sundance, so I think there'd be really cool, could be a really cool year for him if he's taken seriously and ends up being, a big heavy hitter in a lot of these categories, in, a lot of these movies that could get him Oscar nominations. Next, I'm gonna put Tom Hanks for here again. Like, if this is ending up gonna be like a crowd pleaser, I'm not gonna compare it to Green Book because I don't think it's gonna be like that at all. But like Green Book, where it's like all these like veteran actors that it just gives you that warm, cozy, holiday, comforting feeling when you watch it. Like I remember going to my Green Book screening and everyone leaving and just having this grand old smile on their face. I think that could be what Here is this year, where it's just this really crowd pleasing, really heartwarming film. And Tom Hanks and Robin Wright could get in. It's just I don't think anyone's in a rush to give Tom Hanks another nomination, so I have him a little lower. And then rounding this out, what do I want to do? I could just do more than 10, but I'm going to keep it at an even 10. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put, and I might regret this, because a lot of people are saying he's going to go in supporting, but I'm putting Kieran Culkin in A Real Pain. I'm going to put an asterisk because he very well could go supporting. And if he goes supporting, I think he might actually have a better shot than if he were to go lead. But I do think Kieran Culkin is very much a co-lead scenario there with him and Jesse Eisenberg. And I think if they decide to go with the co-lead thing, I think it's going to be a harder place for him to get in. But I do think there's a world where Kieran Culkin, just because he is Kieran Culkin, he's hitting a high, I think he could be an Oscar nominee. All right, moving on now to Best Supporting Actress. And I actually didn't realize, but Anjanou Ellis, Alice Taylor for the Nickel Boys is going to be in supporting, which I think honestly helps her even more because I was saying earlier, I think that could be a reason why Nickel Boys is so well received, is because Anjanou Ellis Taylor is giving like this great leading performance, but turns out he's actually giving a supporting performance, and I think that helps her even more. I think that is going to be actually a help for her in terms of getting a nomination. She already got one for King Richard, and she's supposedly even better in this one than she is in that one. So the fact that this movie is supposedly better is a good sign. I think is a performance better is a good sign for her. All right, next I'm gonna go with Daniel Deadwyler. This is kind of like a hope diction. This is something I hope happens. As I said, I think The Piano Lesson is going to pick up some acting nominations, specifically in supporting. And I think she is someone that a few years ago when she didn't get nominated for Till, so many people were upset. So many people were pissed off. And I think this could be the way of like kind of just righting that wrong, if that makes sense, for the Academy, and saying, well, yeah, we screwed up. Well, here we go. Here's to fix our problems, So I would really love to see that. And then next, again, if it is good, I think Maria Bakalova playing Ivana Trump in The Apprentice could be a really interesting nomination as well. She's already a nominee. That's the thing, is I think they like kind of this idea of someone having a breakout hit and then having like these good follow-ups as well to nominate. And I think this would be a really cool nomination. Again, I just don't know how they're going to respond to this film. I don't know who's looking at this film seriously, who's taking this as a joke. I really genuinely do not know. Next up, just because I think it's getting nominated for a lot of things, is going to be Isabella Rossellini for Conclave. Another person who I don't feel like has gotten a ton of due, especially as of late. She's more of a veteran actress, but if she's in a movie that's going to be picking up a lot of nominations across the board, I think she should just come along for the ride. And then another one that I'm going to put, this is kind of a little bit more of a big, bold prediction, because this film I haven't brought up yet, but it is Natasha Leone for his three daughters. And any early screenings of this that I've heard she is just absolutely phenomenal. And it could just be one of those things where she's just so good that they give her a nomination just because she's great and because they think she's worth noting and rewarding. It could just be simple as that. Sometimes talent just is what it is, and that is what they award. And they actually go with the right performance. Rarely, they'll actually go with merit over who you are and what movie you're in. So I think Natasha Lyonne is going to be like my big risky pick there, number 5. But I am going to put Toni Collette here for juror number 2. It is 2 L's. What am I saying? Collette for juror number 2. Again, I think this is going to be a big awards player if it's really good. And if I think Nicholas Hoult is getting in, I think there's a good chance she could come along for the ride. I do have Leslie Manville for Queer. I think Luca Guadagnino is really good with his performers and his performances. So I could definitely see her getting in here. It's very interesting because Anjanou Ellis is in this, in the Nickel Boys, but she's also in Earl's Supremes and Earl's All You Can Eat. So I think if she doesn't get in there, I just think it's going to be a big enough year for Anjanou Ellis that she's going to get in for something. So I might as well put both of her big performances here because I would be shocked if she didn't get in for either of them, if she ends up having like this big breakout year where people are really praising her. Then a performance that I heard a lot about in Sundance, which is Joan Chen for Dee Dee. If this ends up being like a Minari or a Coda, I mean, look at Minari and Coda. They both won supporting actress or supporting actor and supporting actress awards. I mean, Troy Kotzer for Coda, Yoon Yoo-jung for Minari. And if that is the kind of trend we see with Sundance winners where, they have this like really endearing supporting performance, then maybe, just maybe, Joan Chen could get in for Dee Dee. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know how big that film is going to be, but I would love to see it. And then here at 10, I'm going to do another asterisk, and I'm going to put Saoirse Ronan for Blitz only because there are rumors that she's not necessarily the lead and that it's a big communal supporting thing. So in the fear of being a category fraud, I'm going to put her at 10. And spoiler alert, I'm also going to put Kieran Culkin at 10 for supporting actor as well, just because I don't necessarily know what category they're going to be in. So I figured, you know what, if I predict them in both, in my 10 for both, then they're bound to hit in one of them. So as I said, I'm putting Kieran Culkin in my 10 here, but I'm not necessarily sure where I'm going to put him yet. At number 1, though, I think this is the one that if I had to bet right now, I think is going to happen. Samuel L. Jackson has never won a competitive acting Oscar. He's won a honorary Oscar, but never a competitive acting one. So I think this is his chance. I think this is where we're going to see him get his win. I feel very strongly about this. I'm very excited about this. But yeah, I really want to see this turn out really strong for Samuel L. Jackson this year with Piano Lesson. Look at the track record. Viola Davis winning for Fences. Denzel Washington getting nominated for Fences. Viola Davis getting nominated again for Ma Rainey. Chadwick Boseman almost winning for Ma Rainey. Samuel L. Jackson could very well follow that train of 2 acting nominations. And the 2 acting nominations, I'm already predicting Daniel Deadwyler. I'm also predicting Samuel Jackson. I think they'll both get nominated, and it's just a matter of if they can win it or not. But because it is the Best Picture frontrunner right now, I am going to put Clarence Macklin at number 2 for Sing Sing, just because I do think if there is going to be another performance, I could definitely see it being him, because he is also supposed to be really great in the movie. Then he's playing Roy Cohn. Again, I'm really going all in on The Apprentice. I just think it's going to be one of those films that everyone's like, wow, they actually did that, and it was actually great. The con premiere is what's selling me, because a lot of bad movies do premiere at con sometimes, but the fact that a movie about Donald Trump, The Apprentice, is performing at con, I think that really goes to show that they have faith that it's really good. So Jeremy Strong, Succession guy. And you know what? I'll put the other Succession guy right behind him. This is where I'll put Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain. As I said, I think he's going to be either lead or supporting, so I'm putting an asterisk there. But if he's supporting, I think he has a much better shot, just because I think he is a big part of a small movie, and I think that just kind of aids better in the supporting actor category than the actor category, where you're going to have a lot of big Best Picture contenders like Sing Sing, Conclave, The Apprentice. Here, I think there's a little bit more for room for some smaller, more below the radar performances. So I'm really hoping Kieran Culkin can get in. And then I've really been on a Conclave train here. I'm gonna put Stanley Tucci for Conclave. Again, I just have faith that this movie's gonna be good. It's getting really good early buzz. And then at number 6 for similar reasons. Oh, I'll put it on another page there so you can see it. Number 6 for similar reasons, I'm putting John Lithgow for Conclave, just because I don't know who is the bigger role. But we do see double nominees all the time, so there's a chance we could see both John Lithgow and Stanley Tucci getting in for Conclave there. I would not be surprised, just because double nominees happen all the time. Next, this one is kind of nuts, but he's a big time actor in a supporting role, and even if the movie is just okay, there's no way I'm not putting Denzel Washington from Gladiator 2 in my 10, because there's a very good chance that it just ends up being an okay movie, but he's so good in it. It's Denzel Washington. He's playing the villain in Gladiator 2. I mean, I think that enough is enough to get like the Academy's ears perked up a little bit and being like, oh, maybe we should go for that. Maybe we should go for that. I'm also gonna put Michael Shannon for The End. I do think Tilda Swinton is the most likely acting nominee from that film. But again, if it ends up being a Best Picture contender, I think Michael Shannon could come along for the ride. And just every time Michael Shannon gets nominated is a time worth celebrating there. All right, who do I want to put next? Oh, Brian Tyree Henry for the Fire Inside. Again, when I saw what this movie's premise was, I was like, there's no way Brian Tyree Henry's not getting nominated. I don't even have him in my 5, and I kind of want to put him in my 5, but the problem is I think Conclave is just going to be a stronger film overall. So you know what I'm going to do, though? I am going to put Brian Tyree Henry at the 7th spot, though, behind the Conclave boys. I think that kind of fits better for him. Just because I really do think that's a film that I think not enough people have on their radar. I mean, Barry Jenkins wrote it, so I think that says a lot. And then I'm going to put someone that I think, double nominees happen, and if it is the biggest film of the year and the most popular film, I'm going to put Paul Raci for Sing Sing. He was great in Sound of Metal just a few years ago. He was nominated for Sound of Metal, and apparently he's great in Sing Sing as well. So that's going to be my 10 for supporting actor. Again, I just have really very little to go on, but I think that's what's going to make it kind of fun in the end, is seeing what surprises I don't see coming throughout the year. A Best Original Screenplay, again, it's also hard to know what's original and what's not. I'm kind of just going off of what I've heard. I don't really know if Sing Sing is original or not. It is based on the Sing Sing Follies. Okay, so I guess it is adapted. So I'm not going to put Sing Sing there. I don't know if The Apprentice is adapted either, but that seems like a very scripty movie. I'll put Blitz for original screenplay. I'm pretty sure that's original. And then I will put The Apprentice because I also think that's original, but I could be totally off there. It's very hard to know what's original here. But I'm going to put the other Best Picture contenders that I'm considering, like Juror Number 2 in the end, in there. Screenplay is so hard because this all could be so different at the end of it. But here is where I think Challengers does have a legitimate shot of getting in, because I think if it is a more shallow category, we could see one of these big profile films like Challengers sneak in here and get a nomination. I am going to put A Real Pain here too, especially if it does pick up an acting nomination. I think it's a little too small of a film, but it could very well get in. DD, same thing. I think it might be a little too small. Same with Bird. These films that I think are good potential screenplay contenders. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen for all of them, maybe some of them. I'm going to put The Fire Inside again, because I think there's a chance it gets a Best Picture nomination. I think there's going to be a lot of love for that film. And then rounding out the 10 spot here for original screenplay, just because if it's great, I want to be on the right side of history. Megalopolis, I'm going to put there because that is a wholly original film. Really just fully original in every sense of the word. So there you go. That's original screenplay. Now moving on to adapted. This one I think is a lot easier because there's a lot more like big Best Picture contenders in here. The first one, of course, being Sing Sing. And I do think there is a world this could go original because it is listed as original in some places and adapted in others. And same with The Piano Lesson. I mean, we saw it with Ma Rainey and with Fences. I think it's a safe bet to assume The Piano Lesson will get in. Also, I've been nominating it for everything else. Conclave, I think is going to be a big one. And then it would be really cool if Guadagnino can get a film in for Challengers and for Queer in 2 different categories. So because I'm hope dicting it, I'm going to put Queer there. I think it'd be so fun if 2 films of his got nominated. And then also I'm going to put the Nickel Boys. I think Nickel Boys is going to be one of those big profile films we're going to see at the end of the year here. Dune Part 2, I'm actually going to put in my snubs here. I just don't necessarily know if it's a film that people are going to necessarily go to the screenplay first. I think its screenplay is great, and I think it is something that I definitely could see getting awarded, but I don't necessarily know if it's going to be the priority of people. And I think the same goes for Joker Folie à Deux. I think if there is going to be somewhere where they decide to leave Joker and Dune out of it, it's going to be screenplay. But you never know. I'm going to put here, there as well. Again, like I think this is just all your best picture contenders, and it's really going to be a matter of who gets in and who doesn't. And this is also where I'm going to put that godforsaken long ass title, The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat. It's just such a long title, but again, it is one that keeps popping up on all these lists. So I'm going to put it there just to be safe, so I don't look like an idiot at the end of it. And then, because he has gotten lone screenplay nominations before, this is also Hope Diction that Hitman gets in here. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen for Richard Linklater in this sense, but a man can dream. What can I say? I don't have anything for international feature or documentary at this point, but I can predict best animated feature just because I feel like these are a little bit more high profile. Honestly, I think I'm going to predict international feature once Cannes happens, because then it will at least kind of get the idea of what films are going to be competing for that and kind of in the conversation for that. But I think right now, The Wild Robot is the one that I think most people are predicting as number one, myself included. If this is as good a film as DreamWorks is hyping it up to be, then I think it's going to be really, really sweet and really, really cool and really, really epic. It kind of gives me WALL-E vibes just watching the trailer, but even more in an epic sense, almost like WALL-E meets the Iron Giant, meets The Good Dinosaur in terms of its visuals, of its like water animation. But you can't count out Pixar. Especially if Inside Out 2 is very good. The only problem is, like, with these sequels, we didn't see Finding Dory get a nomination. I don't think we saw Monsters U get a nomination. I think Incredibles 2 did, if I'm not mistaken. But again, like, sequels have interesting track records. Unless you're Toy Story, you're really not a safe sequel here. Then I'm going to put The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, which is going to be such a cool film. I'm really looking forward to that one. I think it's also cool that like in the year 2024, we can still award like a Lord of the Rings thing in a category, which I think is really, really sweet. Next, See, I need to research these more. Okay, so the director of The Artist, the silent film The Artist that won Best Picture, has a movie coming out called The Most Precious of Cargoes, and that is an animated film. So you know what? A past Best Picture winner, director directing that, I'm sold. I'm sold. And then again, sequels have such a weird track record, but right now I don't know what else is coming out that I can really feel confident in. So I'll put Moana 2 there. I don't really feel too super confident in that, but there's not a lot right now yet that I'm like 100% sold on. I mean, there's the Garfield movie, there's Despicable Me 4, Transformers 1, but all these films don't really feel like ones that I see getting nominated. There is a Wallace and Gromit film coming out. I think it's untitled, so I'm not going to put it in my 5 just in case it's not coming out this year. But that could happen. There's a movie called Wildwood that is getting some buzz. Memoir of a Snail, but again, with some of these smaller animated films, really only like usually 1 or 2 of them sneak in. You're not all going to have Marcel the Shells every single year, and even that film was not one that I thought would necessarily get in. It was a very fun surprise, but it was a surprise nonetheless until it became a short thing. Kung Fu Panda 4, of all the sequels, I think has the best shot of getting in here. And then you know what? I'm gonna say, just because I don't necessarily know if they're gonna put it in this or not, but if Barry Jenkins actually pulls it off, I'm putting Mufasa, the Lion King here. I think Disney's not going to let it be an animated film, but the Golden Globes a few years ago, if you don't recall, actually put Lion King in their animated 5. Even though Disney didn't campaign it as an animated movie. So, hey, if the Oscars pull that as well, because I'll be honest, I think Barry Jenkins' Lion King film is going to be better than Favreau's. So, as long as it's better and maybe people like it a little bit more and it's well animated, I don't know. This is going to be a weird category this year if that does enter the race, but I would love to see what happens because of that. I'm going to rattle off some text. We still have some time before the next segment. So, for best cinematography, I'm thinking right now Dune is probably the early front runner for Greg Fraser, and then I also think Joker. Just looking at that trailer, I that's one of the elements that, even though I'm not excited in the very least for Joker 2. I can acknowledge that that trailer looks really, really visually stunning. And same with Megalopolis. That trailer looks very visually stunning. And same with Blitz. I haven't seen a trailer for it, but I'm sure that it's going to be stunning just based on the fact that it's a war film. So now it comes down to what's the final slot. And I think because of the best picture of it all, I'm going to go with I've been putting it everywhere but Conclave. I do think there's a world though where you could see like Furiosa get in. I think there's a world you could see even the new Eggers Nosferatu get in if it's a big technical juggernaut. I think The End though is another Best Picture nominee that could sneak in there. I think if he shoots the hell out of it, Gladiator 2 could be a big cinematography contender. And then just because I don't know how the cinematography will be, I'm putting Sing Sing because it could just be one of those things where if it is like an Everything Ever All at Once and it kind of sweeps across the board, then I don't want to be on the wrong side of that. But best editing is where I'm going to put Sing Sing. Again, being the best picture contenders. I think these three, Sing Sing, Blitz, and Dune Part 2 are going to be the three that kind of show up in most of the texts or most of the nominations. Maybe not Sing Sing because it's not a tech-forward movie, but I just think we're going to see those three films be like the big three, at least right now, in terms of frontrunners. And then editing, I don't want to say Joker again. I really don't. So I'll continue on the Best Picture thing, Conclave, and then I'm going to go The Apprentice because there's always one that kind of surprises us when it comes to its editing nomination. But I will put Furiosa there in case it is as good in editing as the first Mad Max Fury Road was. So I can't count that out. Challengers, I thought, had great editing. So if it holds well throughout the year, I could see that happening. I will put Joker Folie à Deux here because, you know, you can't count it out, even though I don't really want it to get all these tech nominations. Same with Megalopolis. This is the hardest one to say over and over again, to type over and over again. And then, you know, it is editing. So I don't know. Did I put Conclave? I already put Conclave. Conclave is like my default. Like if I have to put something, I'll put Conclave. You know what? Because it's an anthology film and because it's Yorgos Lanthimos, I'll put Kind of Kindness here because I think there is a potential where it could still pick up some text, but we'll have to wait and see. Production design, best production design. Okay, we're gonna have to fly through some of these, but I think this is also one where Dune's there. I think this is one where Joker, Folie à Deux is there. I think this is where Blitz is. Again, those three seem to be kind of everywhere. I think because it takes place in one room, I think here is going to be a really cool production design nominee, similar to how like The Father was a few years ago. I think that was like a really inspired choice. And then because I think it is going to be really, really cool and well designed, I think Nosferatu gets at least a few nominations. And I think this is one where it could pick up a big nomination here because I think the production design, you know, having to create that kind of old-timey vampire scary feel is going to be great. But you can't count out Gladiator 2. Obviously, the Coliseum stuff. You can't count out Furiosa, even though I think a lot of it more is CGI than practical. At least that's what the trailer, the vibes I got. I don't know how technical The End is going to be in terms of its big tech stuff, so that could very well get in. You can't also count out Tim Burton as hit or miss as he's been. If we can get the new Beetlejuice to kind of capture the magic of the last one, then I really could see Beetlejuice getting a nomination here. And then again, just because it's either going to be the biggest hit or it's going to be a big flop, I'm putting Megalopolis there as well. So moving on now to costumes, best costume design. Again, Dune, I feel like a broken record. Joker, I just think it's one of those things where it's just going to get nominated across the board. Here's where I go a little different. I'm going Wicked here. I don't think Wicked's going to get a lot of nominations, but I think Wicked costumes is where I think Wicked could happen. We saw them at the one of the award ceremonies wearing just the pink and green. I think they're really going to hype up the costumes there. Because it is a period piece and it is a war film, I'm going to put Blitz there. And you know what? I'm also going to put Maria, just because if you look at Spencer, you look at Pablo Larraín's film Jackie, costumes is such an important part for those films. I'm also going to put in the backups Gladiator 2 potentially also for costumes. That makes a lot of sense. Same as Furiosa. Again, these fantasy kind of or war films or whatever, it's very hard to tell, you know, which ones are going to stick necessarily over others. I will also put Beetlejuice here as well. It's hard with the genre films. That was the word I was looking for, genre films. And then, you know what? Just for the fun of it, just because I want to have a little fun here, I don't want to keep predicting the same films over and over and over and over and over again. I'm going to say, because of all the leather, I'll put the bike riders here, just because I think they're going to create a lot of cool looks for the bike riders. And then you know what? I'm also going to put, just for the uniqueness of it, and because the costumes were so good that I hope they don't ignore, Lisa Frankenstein. Because we always see weird movies that no one expects pop up in some of these categories, and costumes one of them. Another one is definitely makeup and hairstyling, where we see some random films come in. I think this is where we're going to see like a big one, which is A Different Man. And this is the first time A Different Man is coming up. It almost is like an Elephant Man type thing, where it's about this guy who's physically deformed, played by Sebastian Stan. The reason I'm not predicting Sebastian Stan there is because I think he's going to get nominated for The Apprentice, which is also why I have The Apprentice, because I think just transforming this character into Donald Trump is, or transforming Sebastian Stan into Donald Trump is going to be like a big feat that I think people are going to love. But I also have Dune. I got to put Dune. You know what? In fact, I think Dune is more likely than those two, honestly, if I had to pick. So I put Dune at number one. And then, you know what? I think Joker as well. See, that's what sucks about these early predictions, is because all these films keep dominating. But I think Dune and Joker are kind of locks for makeup right now. And that's like, I'm pretty confident in that. And then I'm going to put Nosferatu there as well. I would love to see Nosferatu get a nomination. It sucks that I keep leaving Furiosa out of this, but I feel like Furiosa is going to always end up being like just there, but not quite. And then I think this is where we could see Beetlejuice sneak in as well. I think this is where we could see Maria for the same reasons I said about costumes. But this is also where we get some weird ones. So I want to also put some weird ones on here as well. I would love to see, and I don't think this is necessarily going to happen, but Sasquatch Sunset. If they can make a campaign and make a pitch, I think there's a world where we could see Sasquatch Sunset get in. I mean, why not? I mean, it is very much a makeup movie. And then just because it had the first two films had so much makeup, I'm putting Maxine here too. Again, I want to make some like kind of bigger, bolder predictions, and I think these are the categories where we could see like a random movie kind of pop in. I think Maxine, depending on how they work with Mia Goth, in X they have the old age makeup, but then also all the blood makeup and the period makeup and Pearl. I don't necessarily know what Maxine is necessarily going to be, so I don't know if it's necessarily going to be quite what a makeup heavy movie, but if it is, I thought the first X movie was really makeup heavy, so I'm gonna put it there for that reason. All right, visual effects, we're almost done here. Visual effects, I actually feel really good about my 5. In Brother Bros app on it's called Award Expert, this is the only category I have locked in because I feel really good about these 5. Dune Part 2, I think Dune Part 2 is happening. I think Dune Part 2 is the one that's kind of a done deal. I also think these movies just keep getting nominated. There's no way I think Planet of the Apes misses here. The first 3 of this new trilogy, this new franchise got nominated. I also think Twisters is going to happen as well. I mean, I just watched that trailer and I'm like, that just screams visual effects for me. And then I am going to put Blitz. It is a war film, so I think there's something to be said about that. I think Blitz is going to be a big favorite there. And then I am going to be putting Furiosa. And I toyed with probably putting The Lion King here, but the thing is, if they decide to put it in animated, I don't want to waste that spot on there, so I'm going to put Mufasa The Lion King next. I also could see Gladiator 2 getting in, sure, but I do think Twisters gets that spot over Gladiator 2. And then Megalopolis, again, I don't know how much visual effects is going to be in that movie, but that first teaser was so crisp and so beautiful. And then, what else am I going to put in here? You know what? Let's have some more fun. Let's have some fun and make some unpredictable ones here. Let's go Alien Romulus again, because if these visual effects are good, it could just be one of those things where the visual effects department is like, yeah, it's great. We don't care if you liked it or hated it or whatnot. And then you can't ever count out Godzilla versus Kong. Sorry, it's X Kong now. Godzilla kisses Kong. Because X's and O's, right? Kisses and hugs. Godzilla kiss Kong. I'm gonna put there just because big monsters fighting and good stuff. All right, best sound. I'm gonna rattle these off very quickly because we've got to get to the next video soon. Dune Part 2 is getting sound. I also think Joker is getting sound. I do think Furiosa, this is one that's a real kind of sure bet for Furiosa. Also Blitz because of the war. And then you know what? Just because I think it'd be really cool, I'm going to put Twisters there as well. I got to take some long shots here. This is the early Oscar predictions. They're not supposed to be right. I will put Gladiator next, though. I will put Quiet Place. for sure. Just because Quiet Place movies always tend to be in the conversation. I don't really know how much sound is going to come into this one, but Megalopolis, same as The End. Again, it just depends on how tech heavy they are. And because it is a musical, I'll put Wicked. I don't necessarily think Wicked is going to get many Oscar nominations aside from obviously the beautiful costumes. So the next one that I'm going to do is Best Score. We only got two more. Best Score and Song. Let's do this. I think Dune Part 2 is the heavy front runner. I don't think it's going to win just because Hans Zimmer won for the last one, but I think right now it's the safest bet. I also think the score for Challengers is one of those undeniable ones. This is one where I feel really good that this one will hold throughout the year, the Challenger score, just because it's so good. Another one, Coppola knows how to pick his music, so I'm gonna put Megalopolis here. This could be a bit of a stretch here, but I do feel really good about Megalopolis. And then it's tough for these last slots. I think because it's going to be a big contender, Sing Sing. If it has a good score, I've heard the score is good. Then I think it could get in. And then you know what? I'm going to put Alan Silvestri for here. Alan Silvestri and Robert Zemeckis created some of the best film scores ever. So if this film score is anywhere near the quality of their Back to the Future or their, Forrest Gump scores, then I think we're in for a treat. Though I am putting Joker here. This is another thing like Joaquin Phoenix, where I think because Hildur Guðnadóttir got nominated and won for the first one, are they going to go out of their way to nominate her again? But then again, I put Dune Part 2 on here. So you know what? Instead of Sing Sing, instead of Sing Sing, I'm going to put Joker there just because I just made the argument for why Joker should be in there. And you know what? I'll probably put Joker number 2 because I'm boring. And I'm abiding by the social norms, and I shouldn't do that. I should stand alone. I should stand out more because I'm boring. But it's true. I think Dune and Joker are just going to get nominated for a crap ton of stuff. But Conclave, if it has a good score, could definitely get nominated. I think Blitz, just being kind of an across-the-board contender, could get nominated. Furiosa, if it has an epic score like the first one did, then I think it could get in. And then The End, because I heard the score is really good, the Josh Schmidt score. Lastly, our last one here, Best Original Song, which is probably the toughest considering I don't really know the names of many of these songs. A lot of them, if you look at the awards expert app, are just TBD. So I'm just going to write the movies that I think the songs are going to come from. There's obviously going to be an original song from Moana, so I'm going to put that at number 1 just because I feel confident that it'll get in. And you know what? Moana is not being written by Lin-Manuel Miranda. He's writing music for Mufasa, the Lion King. So it's going to kind of just be one of those things where those two are Disney films are going to have original music. I feel safe about that. Again, I have no idea with song. I really don't know. I guess there might be a Joker song, so I'll put Joker there. Maybe a Wicked song. And then you know what, guys? You can't count her out. Diane Warren, Relentless. There's literally a documentary about Diane Warren that I think she wrote an original song for, or it's a movie about her. I don't really know, but if Diane Warren's in the conversation, she's getting nominated. And you know what? The fact that there's a whole movie about Diane Warren coming out, I'm gonna say this is the year she finally wins it. How about that, Subathon? Right here, you heard it first. I think Diane Warren's going to finally win her Oscar for whatever Diane Warren Relentless is, whatever the hell that is. So I'm not even going to put a number 6 through 10 there for song because it's song. It's very hard to predict. But those are my predictions. Go back through them. From start to top, this should say a juror number 2, 11, by the way. I messed that up on the doc. But these are my Oscar predictions, which I literally just came up with on the fly here. I have a list of all these films here that I'm looking at on the Oscar Experts app, the Award Expert app. But I really had no idea how I was going to put these in here. This is just kind of based on first instinct. So I'm very excited to look back later and see how well I did.